Awesome. Thank you guys for joining me today. So today I'm gonna share my screen. I'm just gonna do a little bit of an intro. So welcome to Give to Get. Today is the mindset mastery today. So let me just, oh, I gotta continue here. I'm gonna share my screen here. Oh, I'm unable to share my screen yet at this time until we get it transferred over so I can share my screen. If you don't mind.
You can do it now, Stefan. You're the host now.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, let's get this started here. Awesome. So I'm just going to play this and then we're going to get started here. Okay, so welcome to Mindset Mastery with Stefan Neff, and that's myself. So who is Stefan? Well, Stefan was born and raised in Langley, British Columbia, married with 2 children. One's Stephen and one's Brandon. So one's 20 and one's 30. So, and who is Stefan? Stefan had alcohol and drug addictions for 35 years until he found a solution that worked. It's called Smart Recovery, Self-Management and Recovery Training, based on science using CBT, REBT, means Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy tools. So today we're going to learn how to build and maintain healthy boundaries in our own lives. So just going to stop sharing the screen and we're going to get started in just 1 second, everyone. Let's talk about healthy boundaries today. So why are boundaries relevant in our family and friends bubble? All people in healthy relationship have healthy boundaries, running smooth in the background as a basis of mutual respect between 2 parties. We may never think about it until a relationship becomes unhealthy or experiences problems. Without healthy boundaries, when facing challenging relationship issues, such as those often accompanied with addictions, it's common to give up or change our own values in order to keep the peace and hold on to the relationship. Healthy boundaries, on the other hand, can allow us to maintain and enjoy relationships more, while at the same time staying true to our own values and our own direction in life. People with addictions, those who close to them, are often found to have weak boundaries and can benefit from personal mindset work to explore and define communication with personal boundaries. So what do I mean about boundaries? What are boundaries? Well, boundaries are guidelines, rules, or limits that we identify for ourselves about what we desire in the way of reasonable and safe, permissible ways for other people around us. I'll give you an example. I do not want to be subjected to secondhand smoke for an individual that has quit. I do expect to be paid on time when it comes down to my rent that's due on the 1st of the month. Boundaries also include those decisions that we make about how we will respond when somebody steps outside of those limits we have identified. Boundaries are not brick walls. Walls are meant to be for people. Outside of boundaries are more likely like fences, meant to mark out personal space, rights, and preferences. It is difficult or impossible to have a relationship with somebody with a brick wall in front of them. It's easier and very possible to have a healthy relationship with someone on the other side of the gated fence. Healthy boundaries are not about the other person or their actions. They are about self. Having healthy boundaries is how we remind ourselves and others that our trust and affection, time and energy, health and relationship have value and will be protected. Healthy boundaries are a sign of respect for ourselves and our desires. And I'll give you an example. I do not want to be subjected to secondhand smoke, so please smoke outside. I understand that you have lots of expenses, but this month, please remember that the rent is due. Excuse me for a second while I get something to drink. What sort of a person has boundaries? So what kind of person? All people have a sense of how they wish to be treated. I think we all all want that. So all people do have boundaries, even if they don't know they're using that term, boundaries. People who are not well practiced in communication, their boundaries are frequently experience enormous frustration when others violate their rules of acceptable behavior. Learning to effectively communicate our healthy boundaries can alleviate frustration in our lives. Now, I'll get this questionnaire, true or false, and be truthful with yourself when you're answering these questions when it comes down to our loved one with addictions. This is true and false, I loan money to my loved one, but often never get paid back. I am supporting someone financially who should be able to support themselves on their own. My loved one lies to me over and over again and covers up the truth of his or her activities. I fail to speak up when I've been treated poorly. I frequently agree to do something in order to keep the peace or to please others. And I was one of those individuals. I was a people pleaser until I learned actually how to focus on my own boundaries, how I set my own boundaries. My loved one has been responsible for causing damage to our property. I give and give and give, and in this relationship, and in return, I get less and less and less. I do not give, although that I am unable to make myself happy. My loved one sometimes disappears for long periods of time without making contact. I don't know if anybody else in the process has got a 20-year-old, so I'm in the process of that. I frequently feel angry in response to my loved one's behavior. Another true and false. I feel like I can't make plans because my loved one is unpredictable. My loved one puts lives at risk by drinking and driving under the influence. I can only be happy if my loved one is doing well. Otherwise, I feel anxious. My loved one emotionally unavailable more and more or all the time. My loved one does not accept responsibility for any of the household chores. Oh, man, I'm telling you, having a teenager, that's a good one. And this is not only for the individuals with addictions. It could be your children. It could be your coworker. It could be an employee to set boundaries. And on the other side too, as well, it could be an employee setting boundaries with a boss. My loved one is verbally or physically abusive. My loved one expects me to be the backup alarm when, for example, it could be for their work or school if they oversleep. And I've heard this many, many times with parents because they don't want their kids to be late for work, because they want them to thrive. My loved one doesn't clean up after themselves. My loved one is not following through on his or her promises. So pause for a second and do some self-reflection on these questions. And if you feel that you've answered some of them true, your boundaries may be being crossed by another, and or you may be crossing your own boundaries if you had answered yes to a few of these questions.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
So let's switch gears for a moment. Identifying, communicating boundaries and how to do this. How do we know we have boundary issues that need addressing? Some of the signs that we may need to focus on boundaries. Okay, feeling of depression, fatigue, anxiety, burnout, powerlessness, panic, and extreme anger. Attempting to keep the peace by putting up with things and to try and to control the things that we cannot control. I don't know about anybody else, myself included. Problems with making decisions, defining goals for ourselves, getting things done because we've devoted our life of trying to manage somebody else's life, or maybe addictions of our own. Who benefits from boundary communication? Myself included. I think we all could do with some boundary setting communication skills. So one of the consequences of addiction is a loved one's behavior that is often unknowingly hurtful, disrespectful, or disturbing the family and friends bubbles. In the short term, it may seem easier to keep the peace and not add any drama when it comes down to setting boundaries. And that's one of the ones for myself, because I always wanted to keep the peace. And that comes back right to my childhood with my parents at 6 years old, is not speaking up. But think about the long term. What is the likelihood that things will improve if families and friends never share with their loved ones how they behave is affecting those closest to them? It's a question to ask yourself. What is likely the long-term effect on families and friends if they never speak up? Very important to answer this question very honestly with ourselves. It is possible that your loved one might mistake your patience and tolerance for acceptance of their unwanted behaviors. Now, healthy boundaries provide a way for families and friends respectfully communicating the problem they have experienced with their loved ones, with their behavior, and request alternate behaviors to be asked of them. Here's a great quote from one of the books that we share with the families and friends. It's called "Get Your Loved Ones Sober." You are at the center of everything. You are the most important player. You need to have the energy and the heart to keep going. Make sure you do. You absolutely must take care of self first, and that's called "Get Your Loved Ones Sober." Let's talk about how to establish healthy boundaries in our relationships. In order to establish healthy boundaries between yourself and the other, first, identify the symptoms of your boundaries currently being or have been violated or ignored in the past. Some symptoms sounds like I mentioned: anger, frustration, feeling powerless, hopeless. Second, take responsibility for your own upsets. I'll repeat that one more time. Second, take responsibility for your own upsets. Identify the irrational or unhealthy thinking and beliefs that you have led you to allow your boundaries to be ignored or violated. One of the tools that I've loved, and I've shared this in another video here, is the ABC tool. It is a very excellent resource for this. So the ABC tool is based on rational emotive behavior therapy, created by Albert Ellis. He was an American psychologist who created the foundation for rational emotive behavior therapy. So I'm going to explain just some small details, and you can look into it on your own. Is the A is the activating event, B is the belief, C is the consequence, means the emotional feeling, D is to start to dispute the irrational belief, E is the effective new rational belief and feeling you want to receive moving forward in your life. Third, I'll reiterate it, identify the new, more rational, healthy thinking and belief, which will encourage you to change your behavior so that you will build healthy boundaries between yourself and others. Fourth, identify new communication skills you'll need in order to sustain healthy boundaries between you and others going forward. Key word is sustain. Fifth one, implement your new healthy boundaries. Building and believing your belief about the behavior in your life so that your space, privacy, and rights are no longer ignored or violated. So you ask, where do I start? Where do I start? Gain some experience and some confidence with communicating small boundaries before moving on to large boundaries. So choose to address small boundaries, such as is not cleaning up after themselves, means your kids or someone close to you. Not participating in household chores, like I said, before tackling large and more personal issues, such as abusive behavior. Very important to build and build and build. How to communicate a boundary effectively. Communicating in a direct and honest manner is a critical component to setting boundaries. It is impossible to have a healthy boundary without someone has no boundaries and who cannot communicate honestly and directly. Learning how to set boundaries is a necessary step in learning to be a friend to ourselves and others. Since boundaries are about self and not about other, they are best communicated, and I've mentioned this before, in an I statement. And I'll give you a sample of format communicating boundaries. So first off, you would go inform. So when their behavior, I feel means my reaction. And then you request, can I ask you to stop or change this behavior? Whatever the behavior may be. And I'll give you an example. It's a very simple one. When you have the TV turned up loud, I feel frustrated because I can't hear the baby monitor. Can I ask you to turn down the volume, please? Simple. Yeah, it sounds simple, but it can be simple if you work the tools. And I'll give you one more example. When you don't let me know where you are, I feel very worried about you. I don't know about anybody else with my two older sons when they were teenagers. I would like in the future if you could call me and tell me when you're coming home. It's very simple. But you can see how I said I would like. So the I statement is very important. What to expect when you're communicating or when you communicate a boundary. No matter how skillful a family and friends member communicate a boundary, a loved one may likely see a boundary as an attempt to control what they're doing, means their behavior. And if this is the case, and there's resistance, and that is expected, remember, in the event of hostile response of a loved one, the immediate is your own priority, means your safety first. Postponing your boundary, postponing your boundary communication may be the best option at that point. The communication may lead to it could be redelivered in a calm manner multiple times, over and over again in the next several days, using the I statement format. And I've shared this before, using the PIUS style communication. And see the previous video that I've done about positive communication skills, please, because this is a very relevant, that the PIUS does work. I truly do believe it does work. Remember, boundary communication is the loved one. So I want to roll that back for a second, is when you're dealing with an individual that's intoxicated, you may not be heard. And if your loved one continues to cross your boundaries when they're intoxicated, a further step can be taken. So you could inform, and deciding to communicate a consequence for a future violation may be required. And then whatever that may look like for you, that would be yours. So healthy boundary summary. I'm going to give you a summary, basic guidelines and principles for boundaries. Boundaries are are invisible fences, essentially to protect self. It is my responsibility to know, communicate, and protect my boundaries and limits. When I know my own boundaries, I can respect others' boundaries. Some facts regarding boundaries. No one has or kept perfect boundaries. I don't know about anybody. Sometimes I step away and then move back forward. So it's back and forth. Everyone struggles to establish and maintain healthy boundaries throughout a lifetime. Boundaries offer protection from others who might be unknowingly or knowingly control us, hurt us, abuse us, manipulate us, or use us. The importance of boundaries when dealing with addictions is because this is very crucial when it comes down to addictions, because it's a very sensitive situation when we have a loved one dealing with addictions. And on the other side of the fence, I was the one with the addictions in the past. My wife was forceful in the beginning because she didn't understand the process of boundaries. Until she understood is when she set healthy boundaries. It started making me think a little bit differently and herself think a little bit differently. We all have personal boundaries, even when we are in a healthy, functional relationship. Boundary violations are often effortlessly worked out between two people involved. Consider that often as friends or family members of someone with addictions, we often are affected by our loved ones' unwanted addictive behaviors. We may find ourselves feeling angry, frustrated, disrespected, or powerless. I've mentioned this before. These are signs that our personal boundaries are being violated. Yours and your loved ones as well. Communication and working on boundary violations requires effort, and the communication, the skills necessary. Often challenging, but not impossible. And definitely worth it. And the effort to put in that communication, because I truly believe communication can break down the walls between our loved ones and ourselves. When my boundaries are violated, okay, these are several things that I can do, and I will roll it back again to the ABC tool that I mentioned earlier. I can choose to accept that his or her behavior are what they are, and I can become less upset as a result of it. I will still be hurt and possibly still be angry. I've had that before, but hopefully calmer, and I've had that too as well. And able to express my feelings in a non-confrontational way. I can communicate to my loved one about how their behavior are affecting me. I can request that their behavior be changed. I can decide upon a communication, my plan for dealing with future hurtful behavior. If my request is not honored, I can follow through with my plan by taking action. That's a big one, taking action and following through with my plan. I don't know about anybody else, is they have a plan and all of a sudden they back off their plan. And what is the result of that? Our boundaries may be being stepped over again. To enforce my own personal boundaries with my loved one who has an addiction, I not only preserve my own sense of self-worth, but my loved one experiences natural consequences of his or her behaviors. By not enforcing my own boundaries, my loved one gets the message that his or her behavior are acceptable. I'll repeat that one more time. By not enforcing my own boundaries, my loved one gets the message that his or her behavior is acceptable. Very important. This is one of those tools that I call, it's called the hula hoop boundary analogy. It may sound funny. Well, you're thinking, oh, the hula hoop. Remember the hula hoop when we were kids? Just imagine you have one around you right now. Just imagine a hula hoop around you right now. It's magical. It hovers around your waist. It feels like it's there all the time. Now imagine that everyone else has a hula hoop around them. Okay, so often we spend incredible amounts of time and energy on things that we cannot control. And then we get mad at ourselves for failing to do what is never possible to do in the first place because it was not within our own control. Okay, you might say, okay, but what does that have to do with the hula hoop? Well, think of the hula hoop as our very own sorting tool for differentiating between what you can and cannot control. In other words, if it's in your hula hoop, you can probably control it. If it's outside of your hula hoop, you cannot control it, and all efforts to do so are wasted. So what's in our hula hoop? And you may be asking, and you may be thinking, going, what's inside my hula hoop? It means my body, my thoughts, my actions, my opinions, my core values, my dreams, your wishes. Now, what's outside of your hula hoop? You go and thinking, okay, that's inside of my hula hoops. This sounds pretty straightforward. So what's outside of our hula hoop? And some people call this the bubble, but I call it the hula hoop because it's a lot more fun. Everything else is outside of our hula hoop. Other people, other people's thoughts, other people's actions, the weather, etc. You get the picture. Everything else is outside of our hoop that we cannot control. Are you starting to get the picture? Raise your hand, everyone. Okay, this is a hula hoop. So what is yours in your own hula hoop? And those are really the only thing that you can control. So what is yours? It means yourself. Everything that is not in your hula hoop belongs outside of your hula hoop that you cannot control. Now this may sound pretty simple, but you'd be actually pretty amazed. And I've been amazed when I've shared this in my group because I have and I do this probably once a month when a new participant comes in and they be like, and they start to understand, they really get an aha moment about what's outside and what's inside their hula hoop. They start changing their way they're thinking. They start to feel differently because they know that they want to control others and their behaviors. But the only person that the thing they can control is their own thoughts and feelings, means their own behaviors. So, but you'd be amazed when you really start to doing something and some sorting, how often you find yourself in someone else's hula hoop. Imagine that for a minute, picture yourself merely hula hooping away in your hula hoop. Then picture yourself hula hooping two hula hoops. Okay, you may say, oh, I can do that. I can hula hoop two hula hoops. Yeah, you may be right. But can you hula hoop two hula hoops with another person in yours? So just imagine yourself. You're hula hooping away, or somebody else is hula hooping over there, and you go, I'm going to go jump into their hula hoop and see if we can do it together. You know what happens to the hula hoop? It drops. It's the same analogy about setting boundaries. So if we try to go and control somebody else, oftentimes is the hula hoop just drops to the ground, and then our boundaries dropped. Very interesting. And lastly, I would like to share something that's really dear to me. I've shared this in my groups quite often, and especially with new individuals that are joined, about personal bill of rights. And it's a list of, I think 26. So personal bill of rights. Number one, I have the right to ask for what I want. Number 2, I have the right to say no to requests or demands I can't meet. Number 3, I have the right to express all of my feelings, positive or negative. Number 4, I have the right to change my mind. Number 5, I have the right to make mistakes and not have to be perfect, myself included. I worked on that one about making mistakes. I've oftentimes felt that I had to be perfect. Letting go of that perfection in my own life. Number 6, I have the right to follow my own values and standards. Number 7, I have the right to say no to anything when I feel I am not ready, it is unsafe, or it has violated my values. And I'm going to share something. Number 7 here is I was working at a job in the past. It was about 9 years ago, and I truly felt in my gut that it was unsafe, but I wanted to please the boss, and I ended up getting a concussion because it was unsafe. And almost 2 years later, it was still affecting me, and it really hit me hard that I wasn't able to stand up for myself, to say what was inside of me about the danger that I possibly could have been and I was in. So one of those things about that, I just wanted to share that real quick. It was sort of a pop-up here. Number 8, I have the right to determine my own priorities. Number 9, I have the right not to be responsible for other behaviors, actions, feelings, or problems. I'll repeat that one more time. I have the right not to be responsible for others' behaviors, actions, feelings, or problems. Number 10, I have the right to expect honesty from others. Number 11, I have the right to be angry at someone that I love. Number 12, I have the right to be unique. Number 13, I have the right to feel scared and say, I'm afraid. Number 14, I have the right to say, I don't know. Pause for a second. And somebody shared this with me. Stefan, you can't know everything. And it's okay to say, I don't know something, and come back to them and say, you know what, I'll find out more about that and I will come back to you. Number 15, I have the right not to give excuses or reasons for my behavior. Number 16, I have the right to make decisions based on my feelings. Number 17, I have the right to my own needs for personal space and time. Number 18, I have the right to be playful and vibrant. Number 19, I have the right to be healthier than those around me. Number 20, I have the right to be in a non-abusive environment. Number 21, I have the right to make friends and be comfortable around people. Number 22, I have the right to change and grow. I don't know about anybody else. When I felt that I wasn't changing and my wife was changing and shifting, I felt that what gives her the right to grow? What gives her the right to change and me stay in my addictions? Until I really realized she had the right to change. She has the right to do what she chooses to do. And it changed everything for me. 23, I have the right to have my needs and wants to be respected by others. Number 24, I have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. Number 25, I have the right to be happy. We all have the right to be happy. Number 26, I have the right to think about me without feeling selfish. And I've shared this in my group about self-care, about thinking about self. And when I say to myself, and I ask the individuals, who's the most important person in your life right now? And honestly, in the past, I said my family. Now I say, I'm the most important person. I'm the only one that can make me happy. I'm the only one that can make me sad. So I come first. And people say, Stefan, isn't that selfish? I said, well, let's go back into the oxygen mask. If I don't put the oxygen mask on myself first, how can I help others? So that analogy, they're like, I still feel that selfish. I said, be in the process of thinking about self. Help yourself, then you can help others. All right, any questions? Thank you, everyone. Awesome, thank you.
Stefan, as always, absolutely brilliant, absolutely wonderful, absolutely real, honest, to the point. Love your presentations. Love how you deliver them. And there is so much important factual based information there that anybody can help anybody, including themselves, in any kind of relationship and situation. I love it, Stefan. I love the passion you bring. I love the clarity you bring. It's absolutely wonderful. So thank you.
Now, by the way, now this was part one. There's a part two of boundary setting. So I wanted to share that coming in the following, I say next month or so. I will bring this topic back up again because there is
in November.
Yes, so in November there will be a part two of boundaries. It goes through a little bit of the same stuff, but it adds more to it. So I like to.
Can't wait.
All right,
can't wait.
Awesome. So I'll do a little bit of revisiting some of the stuff, and then I'll go on to part two. And that'll be very impactful. I truly believe on setting boundaries. Awesome.
Can't wait for everybody to tune in then, sir. Enjoy.
Awesome.